Where's the funeral, Tom?
No funeral, buddy. We're back in the squad, 7-9 squad from 1999 to 2004. We're reliving it tonight, Pete.
Nice. I'm excited, brother. It's nice to hear about federal cases, and we're going to hear about proffering and some of the stuff that you can do on the federal system that I didn't get to do when I was an NYPD detective. And that's the shit that actually really got me so fired up that I left the NYPD after 15 years and decided to go to the feds. I love being a detective in the NYPD and the Bronx Homicide Squad and all, but man, when I saw what I could get done doing the same things that these gentlemen did in Brooklyn, it was a game changer for me, So Mountain, this is going to be a great show. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's probably really good. It is exciting me to talk about it. What is disappointing is that how hard it was to bring state cases against these guys, and it took the hammer of the federal government. And it's still a great partnership with Jimmy Glynn for the FBI, is going to come on in a minute for sure. But the first murder in this sequence of this violence started in 1998, 1999, and by the time it was all resolved was 2015.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you what it takes to put really, really bad people away who are terrorizing these communities.
Well, here's the other beauty of the federal system that folks don't think of, right? I mean, we knew it. We lived in New York. We worked in New York. When you put people in prison and they went to Rikers Island, they came out sometimes better criminals because they had more connections. They were in there with people from the neighborhood. Family could come visit them. When you took that same asshole and you put them in federal prison and they wound up in Sandstone, Minnesota, or Lompoc, California, or Marianna, Florida, or Florence, Arizona, and family wasn't going to come and visit, and they knew that was on the horizon, man, that changed their whole perspective. So guys that would never, ever fucking come in and talk to us were coming in and selling their souls to us, man, giving up everybody, anything they saw. And to get a cooperation agreement, man, you had to give up everything. You had to be willing to testify in federal court or in state court. And the caveat was, because you're making a deal with the devil, if you lie, we're revving up your agreement, you're going to do the max. So a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, well, why would these guys come in and talk? Because they're working for themselves. They're working their sentence down. And then you want to know everything so that if, God forbid, they're on the witness stand, because they're testifying against guys they know. And the bad guy on the other side of that table might know something if someone's holding back. So they got to lay everything out on the table so that nothing's going to blow up in the prosecution's face. And in the end, they get that 5K letter and the judge will reduce the sentence or whatever. But I mean, just the effectiveness of that system was, for me, a game changer. And we're going to hear some of the real intricate details of a really good case. And I know you feel so good about this that you put on a suit. I didn't. I just poured myself a double and wore my T-shirt like a slob. But
well, Amazing Aunt, she said TJ cleans up really good. So I'm just saying that I threw the shirt and tie on because I feel like I'm back in the squad room. None of that crisscross tie bullshit. I tied the tie. I wasn't the sharpest dresser in the world, but I always felt that detectives should look the part. Squad detectives. There are other detectives and other assignments that have different things, but I always felt that a detective squad and the detectives in the squad should always dress the part. They need to look professionally, need to carry themselves as such. And again, as I said, the first time I talked to John and Eric on their show, and I'll say it every day for the rest of my breathing life, probably the most rewarding and humbling job and the most honored job to ever have is to watch the detectives do and pull the magic that they pulled. And then with Jimmy Glynn tonight and bringing that federal partner into a case that we just couldn't crack on the state side. Multiple cases. I think we're going to look at 6 murder cases and a whole bunch of shootings and the violence. It was so good, and it's definitely my favorite time. So anyway, tonight, everybody, listen up. We got Detective First Grade Mike Prate, 7-9 Detective Squad. He'll tell you, we'll go a little bit through his career. 7-7, Buddy Boys, got transferred, whole bunch of really interesting stuff. Went to narcotics, back to the 7-9, landed a 7-9, retired as a first grader, doing really, really, really important murder work. And then Special Agent Jimmy Glynn of the FBI, one of the nicest, smartest, most capable people I've ever met. And just as like not the way a lot of people see the FBI. I have a lot of good friends who were at FBI headquarters and all over the country, and I've met them. But when Jimmy walked in the first time in the office and they said he was an FBI agent, I didn't believe it. I said, he's more like one of us than one of one of the feds. So really just fit in, and it's been a long-term 35+ year friendship and relationship. So we got Jimmy Glynn, FBI, and Mike Prate coming in. So I'm going to bring them in.
I got a question for you first, Tommy. You can bring them in. But here's my question to you. Brooklyn detectives, did they actually wear suits, or were they like Bronx detectives where we dress like Catholic school rejects with like khakis on and a blue blazer? Or like if you wanted to go really, really grunt style, Pat Brosnan one time came in with a denim shirt as his dress shirt and the sleeves were cut off under his jacket.
No, I think for the most part, the Brooklyn North guys wore their suits. A couple guys weren't capable of really putting it together. But what I hated was that Brooklyn North cross. They didn't tie the tie. They just crossed it and they had a tie pin and it was crossed. I just never liked that. But anyway, so Jimmy Glynn, Mike Prate, welcome to the Ten-Four Tavern. Guys,
good to be here.
Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you.
All right. So guys, this is the tavern. So it's my understanding. Oh, Pete, I forgot. I didn't change your drink. Pete's drinking Milagros
yes,
tequila or mezcal.
A double. I have a double Milagro Reposado. Ginger.
All right, sorry.
That's when I was purifying my liver, Tommy. That was last week. My liver's better this week.
Yeah, I didn't change the menu. Sorry, guys. Mike and Jimmy, I don't know if you guys coordinated, but you're both showing up with Jameson.
Yes. Yep.
Did you coordinate?
About it, but yep, with Jameson.
All right. Well, I am doing a Williamsburg, and for anyone who knows what the hell a Williamsburg is, you're a liar because I made it up. Because what it is, it's a Manhattan upside down. So instead of 2 parts bourbon or rye and 1 part vermouth, I do 2 parts vermouth and 1 part bourbon or rye, which in this case is Bullet Rye, because I like it less boozy, but you still get the same flavor.
No Manischewitz in there?
No Manischewitz, buddy. No Manischewitz.
I figured Williamsburg, it would be some Manischewitz, but that's okay. I'm wrong.
No, it's the Spanish side. It's the Spanish side. All right, and I was a little surprised because I'm never allowed to talk to an NYPD detective in official capacity unless there's union representation. We're bringing in Georgie Farback. Georgie Farback, welcome to the Ten-Four Tavern, buddy.
Hey, I never miss a classy bar. You know, you serve doers. I got to stop in. Mikey's here. Jimmy, I know for a long time, so I got to stop in and say hello.
Yeah.
Be nice if you put some money on the bar and bought me a drink, but
there's money on the bar. They're pulling from the pot. No credit cards here, buddy.
No credit cards.
Declining balance in cash. So listen, George, you know, you being one of the senior detectives in the 7-night squad when I was there, and being the union representative, Brooklyn North trustee in the DEA, there's not a detective on the job during that period of time that I'm aware of that didn't know who you are and had great things to say. So we wanted to bring you in today. Make sure that Mike and Jimmy are protected. Not so much Jimmy. Jimmy's got his Fed covered, but at least make sure that I don't interrogate Mike too hard, and you know, see if any department policy violations or anything like that. So,
well, in all honesty, guys like Mike and some of the other guys, I think we could outsmart the bosses when they were doing GO15. So I don't know how much union rep you needed. Yeah. I mean, Mike was a pretty good detective. I don't think you're going to lead him down the path.
Yeah, it's true. It's probably true.
I learned from the best.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, Mike, before we get started, I want to put up a banner on the bottom. So everyone pay attention, please, to the banner. I'm going to show a banner. It's copline.org. So before we get into Mike and Jimmy's career, Pete is a big advocate of officer wellness, and he's out doing his thing and that. But Mike is also very much involved. So Mike asked if we could plug copline.org. We're going to do so now. We're going to do so at the end as well. Mike, copline.org. Go.
Yeah, so back when I was at NYPD, I did PAPA after the death of Mike Piggott. You know, he took his life after an event over in the 7-9, and I did PAPA for pretty much. I did it for 2008 to 2012 when I retired, and then I did it for 2 years after. But then, because of the call and work now, I went over to Copline, and Copline is a nationwide organization. They span out to Canada. Basically, it's just retirees answering the call for all of you guys. It's like an off-ramp. That's the simple way to look at it. Hey, you know, you need somebody to talk to. You had a tough day. You can call. It's not just for you. It's for your families. It's active and retired members of the service. And there is no better organization. So all good.
Yeah.
Thanks,
you know, Mike, from a union standpoint, It's such a great organization. It's so great to have somebody that these guys can reach out to, especially recently. I've seen some of the suicides, and I say to myself, but how did this happen? Why did this happen? And if you just know you have somebody to talk to, somebody that's, hey, listen, big guy, I've been there. We can get through this. No matter what it is, we can get through this. It's such a great thing. I give you a lot of credit for Papa and continuing on afterwards.
Yeah, it's a great place, George. And like for folks like me who now made that second career, that second jump into corporate America, like everybody that listens to this that's in corporate America should be, especially if you're still dealing with law enforcement, you should be advocating for those big companies to give back, right? Like that's true. Like all that technology that's out there, but that true wellness is in the line organizations that are supporting it. So they should definitely be. I pound them out, George. I pound them out.
And Mike, what I'd like to throw in there is we've had some of our listeners comment, in the past about that they didn't trust their organization. And I get it. Not every organization has come around with the times. But I mean, the nice thing is there are other opportunities out there besides talking to someone from your department. You have copline.org. There's some other entities out there. So, I mean, look, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay not to do something about it, right?
Right.
And here's another option. There's clergy, there's friends, there's peers, but to sit in silence and just suffer and let things stew, and that's not the answer. So thanks for what you've done with Papa and with this organization, and thanks for being willing to highlight it tonight. Because if we help one person, then this whole podcast, all 20 something episodes, is worth it. If we can just help one person, it's all worth it.
And you know what? Just to follow up with that too, you're right, because when we came on the job, if you went to a boss and said, listen, all right, give me your guns and shield. Yeah. And, and then when they organized Papa and guys could call and it was outside, the department itself, they didn't have to worry about that because it has the stigma. It can be career ending with some guys. Yeah. And, when you look at it that way, you're saying, well, no, I'm not going to tell them. I'll just suffer through myself. And ultimately, sometimes it ends in a tragedy.
Gents, I spent way too much time after 9/11 in that dark spot. And it wasn't until 2017 that I finally decided, hey, man, I came into this profession whole. I'm leaving whole, and got help. So, I mean, for almost a decade, I was not operating the way I should have been operating. I was, sitting there watching TV, but not really watching TV, not paying attention to what was going on around me. I was afraid to go and ask for help because you think that, only pussies ask for help. That's what our culture was bred to believe, right? The reality is asking for help actually is the courageous thing to do. And then once you do that and realize how empowering it is, then you want to help others.
Yes.
Which gives you purpose. So I mean, it's something that you do. You help yourself, and then you get a chance to pay other people back.
I would also say it's not a competition, right? Like, so that when the unions push back or like some agencies push back and say, no, we have our own peer support. Like, just like you said, Pete, like some people don't want to come to the job, right? Because the job has done some foul stuff over the years. It's not a competition. We should all be in it together to make sure that Mike and Pete and George and Jimmy and Tommy are all good.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Just like before we clear the scene, right? Before we clear the scene, everybody good? Nobody's bleeding. You got your shit.
Right.
Yeah, same thing, man. Same mindset.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so just for the audience's knowledge, Jimmy Glynn is having some tech issues, so he's dropped a couple of times. Hopefully he'll resolve it, but we'll be able to go, and Jimmy will be able to plug in. I'm going to start introducing what's going on in the show. We're gonna talk about the two RICO cases that Jimmy and Mike and Kevin Slag and even George Farbeck did some work on it as well. But George is going to go back into the green room and come back at the end of the show if he hangs around. He's probably got some personal business running around and family stuff to take care of because family is everything, as you can see in his backdrop. But George, if you hang on, we'll bring you back at the end on the wrap up.
I will see you at the end, Tommy. Thank you,
buddy.
See you guys.
Thanks,
all right,
George.
All right, bud. All right, so guys, this is what we're doing. We've got Old Gangsters, Do or Die, Bed-Stuy, Don Diva Magazine. For more than a decade, the Lafayette Gardens Houses in Bedford-Stuyvesant was controlled by violence, information known as a gang cash money murder. In July 2005, following an 18-month investigation, federal prosecutors unsealed a sweeping racketeering indictment against 13 members of the organization. The case was built by NYPD detectives Mike Prate, Kevin Slag, and FBI Special Agent Jimmy Glynn, targeting a crew, Damian World Hardy. You're going to hear about his infiltration or associations with the rap and celebrity world. We've got Lil Kim, Biggie Smalls, 50 Cent, Mike Tyson. It is wild. And what they uncovered was a ruthless family-style criminal enterprise that was based on murder, attempted murder, kidnapping witnesses, intimidation, and then the crack distribution to maintain control of public housing, Lafayette Gardens Housing in Bed-Stuy. This is how the case came together, and the violence escalated, and Cash Money Brothers were finally smashed. And then another RICO they ran almost simultaneously. They kind of overlapped a little bit, but not exactly. You'll see a picture here. Who's the guy in the middle next to Kevin? Mike, do you know who that is?
That's Todd Harrison from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay, Todd Harrison. Okay, so we got Kevin Slag on the left, Jimmy Glynn, center right, and that's not politics, Jimmy, not center right. I'm just saying center right in the picture. And then Mike Prate all the way on the right. For years, the Sumner Houses in the Bedford-Stuyvesant community was ruled by violence, drugs, and fear. Rival crews fought openly for control, and innocent residents paid the price. In November 2002, 7-9 Squad, the FBI launches a Operation Gunsmoke with detectives Mike Prate, Kevin Slag, and Jimmy Glynn again, and they uncovered ruthless family drug enterprise. The Martins and the Bradleys controlled the trade, moving massive amounts of crack and heroin, expanding across state lines and enforcing their rule through intimidation and shootings and murder. This is the story of how that operation was built and how this case was taken down. And we'll talk about that. We're going to spend most of the time, everybody, on the Cash Money Brothers because the sensationalism and the celebrity interactions are just wild to me. This is the kind of work that I was talking about. I got to the 7-9 Squad on May 4th of 1999, May 19th of 1999, and I left on June 4th, 2004. 1,856 days in the 7-9 Squad were by far my favorite and most rewarding and most appreciative and most respected time. I can't believe the work that I saw the detectives, and again, Jimmy Glynn, when our federal partners came in, the work that was done was just nothing short of spectacular. So I really appreciate it. As we talk through these murders and these acts of violence, the boots on the ground detectives handling this, but I had my perch from the commander seat and having to go to ComStat and answer these out and explain to them why these cases can't be brought. And when you realize it took almost 20 years to bring a federal partner into the space and the federal prosecution to finally hold these people responsible. So guys, Jimmy, Mike, I just want to personally thank you again for giving me a bird's eye seat to the most unbelievable police work I've ever seen. It was so good. All due respect to the Special Operations Division and Harbor and Aviation and ESU and narcotics and organized crime and all that. But my favorite place was in the 7-9 Detective Squad. It was the best. So guys, let's get into this. Why don't we start with Jimmy? Because I think you started first. So I got some pictures from when you started your career. Jimmy, why don't you walk us through coming on the job? How did you become an FBI agent? Or not? Jimmy, are you there? Can you hear me?
Sure. I started with the FBI actually in the administrative. Yep. Tommy, you got me?
Yes, sir. You're good.
Tommy?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
You good?
Yes.
Okay. I started with the FBI actually in 1982 in the North Division, more an administrative position. It was kind of a communications operator, security manager. I worked the swing shift, 4 to midnight to 8. At the same time, I was going to college. Once I completed my college, which basically took 6 years since I was working full time, I then went in further and applied and went through the process to become a special agent. Where in 1990, I became a special agent. Went down to Quantico for 15 weeks at that point in time. Graduated Quantico. I then was transferred to the New York office. From 1990 to like 1997, I worked white collar, specifically bank frauds, money laundering, counterfeit stolen securities, check fraud, those type of violations there. January 1997, I was transferred to the Violent Crime Squad, specifically the Violent Gang Squad. We had guys on our squad that work in Brooklyn South. They were up in the Bronx. I think they were up working with Pete up in the Bronx.
Yeah.
But we really had nobody in Brooklyn North at the time. And they were looking to have, some sort of federal presence in Brooklyn North. And I was tagged as the representative to go over to Brooklyn North. And at the beginning, I started over, my first case I started was over the Albany houses in the 7-7.
Yes.
But eventually made my way over into 7-9, 8-1, 8-3, where, for the next 30-something years, I became an old man in a young man's game, working nothing but, violent street gangs and violent crimes.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to pull up a picture right now. You did respond as an FBI agent to Ground Zero and 9/11. So I got a picture here. So we'll get back into the violence, but, just give us a quick overview and what your involvement was. Did you do any heavy work there or just respond and helped out, like set us up for the World Trade Center?
Yeah, during the World Trade Center investigation, we responded down to Ground Zero. We spent several days initially down at Ground Zero. But from September all the way through the end of the year, we kind of went on a rotation basis. So I was down at Ground Zero frequently. We also were out in Staten Island at Fresh Kills, where we would sort through the debris that was being shipped over to Fresh Kills. And we had conveyor belts, a whole bunch of tables set up, and we would go, with rakes and shovels, piece by piece, going through all the debris to find any type of identification, bone fragments, anything that would be relevant to the investigation. And at the same time, we were running out and covering investigative leads for the, involving the 9/11 investigation, which was actually being handled by the Terrorism Task Force.
Yep. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate that, and thank you for your service there, Jimmy. You said the 7-7, so I'm going to bring up a gang photo, and I see some 8-3 and some 7-7 people. Give us some background on this one. Let's do it. Here it is.
Okay, that was probably around 97, 98 when I first got over to Brooklyn North. This was actually the Brooklyn North gang unit.
Yep.
By the time they had pulled guys out from the different precincts and formed the Brooklyn North gang unit, which was actually in command by Lieutenant York on the left-hand side of the photograph there. This particular picture was a photograph that I actually had a confidential informant who provided us information on a Bloods gang member, lived across the street, I believe, from a school right on Quincy Avenue. He supposedly had like 11 or 12 firearms in his residence, plus bulletproof vest and a large scale of crack cocaine and powder cocaine. We actually gave the information, Brooklyn North ran with the information, got a state search warrant. It just wasn't enough to go federal at this time, and hit the location. I believe we got seven or eight firearms out of the search warrant, a couple bulletproof vests, besides firearms, we got ammo and some of crack cocaine and powder cocaine.
Yep. So, Jimmy, that it's really good stuff, and I saw a lot of people that I know in there. Some 7-9 guys, some 7-7 guys. Howie DiStefano, Murphy, Kevin York, Sergeant Russo, Tony Russo, right? Real good guys there. Tell me how did you get? Because as we go in and we start segueing into Mike and the 7-9, how did you get steered over to 7-9? What was like? Obviously, we were dealing with the violence. What tipped you over? How did you get introduced to Mike and the 7-9 squad?
Uh, Mike, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was definitely before 9/11. And I don't remember. All I remember is showing up in the 7-9 in the back of a van. I met up with Mike, and I think Mike actually had a CI that was giving us information on a particular case there. I think that was the first time I met Mike. I was actually with Howie DiStefano from Brooklyn North Gang Unit at the time.
Yep.
And we just sat down for a while and briefed, Mike's source. After 9/11, it seemed like the Brooklyn North Gang Unit kind of dissipated there, and right with the squad detectives there. And so at that point, already having, met Mike and knew of the violence that was going out in the 7-9, obviously that was a place to start. So,
place to start and a place to spend time, man, because that place was violent, bro. All right, Jimmy, thanks for that. A little brief your career. Thank you for a really, really stellar career.
I never left the 7-9 to the last.
That is so good. That is so good. All right, so Mike Prate has provided me with some photos. Mike Prate provided us some photos for his career, but before I get into that, I'm going to bring up a picture that I didn't know existed, or maybe I did, but I don't remember it. So this is me with the two partners that Mike worked with most often in the 7-9. Timmy Duffy, detective second grade, who passed away in a vehicle accident, and was one of the best, most dogged, most determined detectives you'll have ever seen. He left a wonderful family behind, 2 daughters and a beautiful wife. So God rest in peace. Please let Timmy rest in peace. And then Chris Gandol on the right, another great detective, retired first grader. So Mike, thanks for sharing this photo. I didn't even know it existed, but this was probably at a Brooklyn North detectives dinner dance or Christmas party or retirement party at, what's the name of the? Russo's on the Bay. Best tortellini during the cocktail hour. Tortellini Alfredo. So thanks for sharing.
Tommy, just on that picture, I'll just say, right, like, so Timmy, God bless him and his family. But for Chris, I spent 24 years out of the 27 with Chris in one way or another, and then I still work with him today. So when you talk about all that, like, that's a friendship that never ends. Like, we work in corporate America together. We travel everywhere together. I've been blessed along the line.
I've often said I have a better life than I deserve because of the people I've met over the hall. And just so everyone knows, we're not going to plug the company because we don't. But the bottom line is Mike and Chris. And there's nothing wrong with the company. It's just we're not sponsoring, and we try to stay agnostic on that stuff.
We've done the corporate roadshow together, Tommy.
Yeah. They are teaching police executives, middle-level managers, and detectives how to use data to further their objectives and the mission of keeping the community safe, keeping their cops safe, and acting in a efficient and productive manner, so that everyone remains. They can live as everybody has a God-given right to live peaceably. So they continue that effort in corporate as well. So let's do this, Mike. Let's do some early photos. Where did you start? When did you get on the job? And just walk us through, and I'll just throw up some pictures, and you can feel like you can comment on them as they come.
Yeah, so January 21st, 1985, I joined the NYPD. Right, so I was working for the Parks Department. I was the parkie at Wingate High School. For anybody who knows that, in the 7-1. I made sure the park was clean for the community. And back then, you had to go into Manhattan to be interviewed. So I had my one shirt and tie, and I would just go back and forth. And I had a 30-year housing investigator who was my investigator, who was as crazy as they came. So that was interesting. So when I got hired, I came on at NYPD. I did my academy time. My company's instructor, Sergeant Doran, he bring me up in front of the class and said to the whole class, "Here's a guy with no hook. He's going to NSU 14," and that's where I went. NSU 14 covered the 7-9, 7-7, 8-8, and 8-4. Neighborhood stabilization, it was called. We go out and do foot posts there. After that, I rolled over, me and my partner, to the, at that time, we rolled over to the 7-7. And we were inserted into that right before the Buddy Boy scandal broke out in the 7-7. If you haven't read the book, I think it's Mike McAlery, wrote the book. It is pretty spot on. And I can tell you, as a rookie there, it was that crazy along the way. After that, I got sent over to the 6-3. They cleaned house after the investigation. They locked up all the guys. They cleaned house. Everybody was dirty, and they spread us out all over the city. I went to the 6-3, which is, at the end, was probably a good place to be, right? Like, it was Kings Plaza, Marine Park. Like, people liked the police.
Well, that was my home precinct. I lived in a 6-3.
Okay, right. So
I know.
You didn't need the 4-cell flashlight. You didn't need any of that stuff. Like, you went there and you were like a gentleman, right? And then it was too slow, to be honest. And in '88, I came back to the 7-9. I requested it on a Friday night, and by Monday morning, I was back in the 7-9. That's how quick it was.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then I did midnights for a long time on patrol. I did 12 years on patrol. And patrol encompasses like anti-crime, street narcotics, all the different little subunits in there. These are a couple of pictures of gun arrests from the time that we were doing. The left-hand side is the late tours, late Richie Otting. That was his arrest. We went there for a person had a seizure, and there was a whole bunch of guns in there. So that worked out really. Guns, drugs, and crack. And then the other guys were just a gun arrest along the way. That's on the right-hand picture there. You see, that was my mother took that in front of the window of the house of my first day on the job, and then that was me in narcotics. So in '96, I had the opportunity to go into Brooklyn North Narcotics. It really wasn't an opportunity. It was just kind of like it was time to go. I had a lieutenant who called me up. I was out. I had my third child at that point, but he called me up and he's like, "Big guy, you're not going back to the 7-9. Like, there's no way you're out. Go to Brooklyn North Narcotics. It's the best thing you'll ever do." And I didn't really want to go, but I went. And 18 months later, I was back in the squad. And then I did the Ram, the Bram, the Ram. I did the squad. It was great. 85-31, Chris Scandol with the shotgun. And that was one of the funerals that we had attended. It was a great run. I'll just tell you, just as the investigative side of the house, I did 10 years as a hostage negotiator. I did probably 8 years of that. Then I also did the peer support. So it was pretty good, pretty challenging. The best time of the job was working with Jimmy. Somehow he adopted me. I was there. Yeah. Rand's liquor store, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. The best part is when Jimmy adopted me, and that really was post 9/11. I brought the violence, and he brought the Fed hammer, and it really was something I couldn't even believe it. It was just crazy when Jimmy walked in the room. So when the feds came, it was crazy.
Yeah, let's get into that in a minute. Let's finish up some pictures and some careers. For anyone who knows, this is your entry photograph on the left that you present to the applicant processing division or assessment candidate, whatever they're calling it now. That's your entry pic, and then your retirement photo. And then Mike, your family, your beautiful, beautiful family and 4 kids.
So everything doesn't work without the family because they stood behind me. I put a lot of gray hair into the wife, and then the kids suffered all those days that I wasn't here. Spent a lot of time at the job. The funny part, Tommy, I'll just tell you, like I came on at about $1.25 and I retired at $2.40. So
we have that in common.
Yeah, but it was muscle though, Mike. It was muscle.
It was muscle.
All right, hold on a second. So you mentioned hostage negotiation. So Amazing Ant, do you remember Harvey Schlossberg, first grade detective, created HNT? Jack Cambria worked closely with Harvey as well. So just a big announcement and a big reveal. Jack Cambria just committed to Pete and I this week. He will be on a future episode in, I believe it's March, right, Pete? Something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
So Jack Cambria was the boss on my time at HNT. So
Did Hugh McGowan precede him or did he replace him?
now he preceded him.
Okay. Were you on a team with Benny Torrado by any chance?
Pete, this is gonna be really bad, but I always have to tap Chris to tell me people's names because I don't know. Like, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, no worries, brother.
I don't remember the name. Like it was funny, right? Like I'm just telling you, like Chris Scandal and I, we went everywhere together. HNT, oh, there's a job. Oh, no problem. He's coming from Brooklyn North Homicide. I'm coming from the 7-9 squad. He picked me up and we just go to every job. Yeah.
All right, a couple of social photos. Who's that? Is that Smelly on the left?
Yeah, Evan Smelly.
Evan Smelly, God bless, first grade detective, retired. Good guy. Original Transit, a bunker boy. Just saying.
Yeah. You keep your prayers for Evan because he's going through some stuff, so we keep our thoughts for him.
Prayers for Evan.
Yeah, and then the crew, man, like that was about 240 right there at the lower right.
Is that so? Is that the call box by any chance, or?
I don't know.
I don't know where that is. And then we got Matty Collins, Mike, Chris, Kevin Slegg, George Harvey, Chris Hennigan, Seamus McHugh. Just solid dudes.
If I didn't say that's where Tony started his love of pigeons. You know what I mean?
So Tony Pigiani in here, he has a love of pigeons. Mike will tell that story at some point in time. Great guys, really appreciate all the really good brotherhood. And this is from another Russo's on the Bay, Chief Dowd on the left, Mike Mayer, who's got an interesting 9/11 story with the Kansas City Chiefs, Frankie Gutierrez, Timmy Duffy, rest in peace. I'm in the middle there. Mike, Chris Hennigan, Joe Pistocchi, Chris Scandal, and the great DEA delegate and Brooklyn North trustee, George Farback. So anyway, so I know there's a million photos. I know you have a lot more, Mike. It's really tremendous. Great careers, the memories, like you just said, for sure. But let's get into the two cases. I'm going to bring up a document. Let's do this. I'm going to see if I can get it on the other side. So 13 members of a Brooklyn-based gang, Cash Money Brothers, indicted for racketeering. Long story short, there's 12 defendants, according to this press release, and I want to just make sure, and you guys can validate it. I'm just going off the press release. We have Eric Moore, we have Damian Hardy, Dwayne Myers, James Sessoms. We have all the nicknames for everybody. Their street names: World, eBay, Thor, Pops, Carl Davis. I don't know, Ferrier. I don't remember his nickname. And a whole bunch of stuff. We got Peanut, Ivory Davis, Dwayne Myers, Thor, Kojak. We're probably looking at about 6 murders. Abu Bakr Rahim, J.R. Hamilton gets killed in a 7-3. Long story short, this massive indictment comes down in 2005. And you guys don't resolve this case. The final conviction is 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close.
Yeah, no, that's correct. 2015.
Yeah, so I want everyone to know it took 10 years to put these acts of violence who were terrorizing the Lafayette Gardens housing development and surrounding Bedford-Stuyvesant community, breaching into the 7-3, breaching into Lower Manhattan and Soho. These gangbangers, Ivory Davis gets shot in front of the tunnel, and 6 months later gets shot in Soho and killed. An innocent victim does get run over and killed when Ivory Davis tries to run away. Don't think for 1 second that this violence does not creep into your world. This is not a different world. It is in our faces. Pete can certainly talk about it when we talk about his case up in the Bronx, his big RICO and his involvement in that stuff. So this stuff. So Here is the press release, and here are all the defendants. So why don't we walk it through as best as you guys can chronologically, starting with the 1998 murder when World killed the roller rink bouncer, getting thrown out for that. And that really started his terror of violence. Is that a fair statement to say, guys?
It's funny, right? Because you really didn't even get to tie that one until we did a proffer. And then guys talked about that through a proffer, right? Like, so that was the speaking to Pete before we came live, that was truly the most amazing part of the whole thing of dealing with the feds and Jimmy, getting down to the U.S. Attorney's office and getting guys, they're going to become a cooperator. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you ever see that guy were you in the precinct when that guy got killed on the corner? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, you ever solved that? No, I did it. And it was just, you were like, wait, what? And you go, yeah, the roller rink, I'm trying to think of what they called it, the Empire Roller Rink. You remember that place? Yeah, World got dissed by the bouncer, and he sent Thor back in to kill him. Like, and you're like, what? And then now you had to go back and dig up something that you did. Like, you came with your own violence, right? Like, I had folders, and I came with my own violence. But man, you walked away with so much more. It was crazy. It really was crazy.
Yep. So here's a picture up on the screen, just so everyone knows. World is on the right. In the middle is Ivory Peanut Davis, which is where the conflict is. And then the person on the left is Daryl Homo or Homicide Baum. Baum is, or was, I should say, because he is no longer of this earth, the bodyguard of Mike Tyson, went away for basically the entire 1990s. Excuse me. And then got out of jail, hooked up with Tyson again. Tyson was loyal to him. I believe, if I got the story straight, he wanted to get into the action. People, I need you to understand, if you've never watched The Wire, there are so many similarities of the behavior and the fact that they have a path to legitimacy and they just can't, and they have to go bang hard and get back into the neighborhoods and hit it. And I think Hamo was a really good example of that. He could have just rode with Tyson and did that, but he had to get back into the neighborhood, and he took one in the back of the head as a result. So that's who it is here. So again, we got 1999. Bring us to that was 98, the roller rink and the bouncer Mike Colon who gets killed. Bring us to 1999, June 12th, Myron Wise Hardy, Damian World Hardy's brother.
So let me just set it up for the folks that don't know anything about the Lafayette Gardens. And Jimmy, yes, you can throw the BS flag if I'm saying anything wrong, right? There's 7 buildings that make up the Lafayette Gardens housing project, right? They're anywhere from 13 to 15 stories, and 2 of them are 20-story buildings, right? And they have 880 apartments, right? And they have about 2,600 residents in that area. And all of that was controlled by like 3 or 4 groups that were operating within different buildings. Wise and World took on Bush and Peanut had his own group of buildings, right? And it was like everybody was making money, but everybody wanted to make more money, right? And so that's what it came down to. I think Wise getting killed, and Jimmy, you tell me if I'm not remembering it, it was like a diss. It really wasn't over anything crazy. World went to jail. So World, who was, at that point still is batshit crazy, was in jail. And Wise was like the glamour piece of the crew. And, he gets killed. And it really set a momentum off in there on just, you got to think of it. It's like one square city block with 7 buildings. And it was nonstop shooting in there, back and forth. And it really was crazy. They had an idea or the execution of help me, Tommy. The next murder after Wise got killed was a couple days later. So what did
Kojak
get killed in the lobby?
Yeah. So hold on. So for everyone to know, Myron Wise Hardy, Wise gets killed on June 12th. On June 15th, Kojak, who is accused of giving the gun to Ramel Davis, who's the shooter, gets killed 3 days later. So this is hot. And I remember being on the scene and finding out later that Thor was the shooter of Gerard Mackin's Kojak. And I remember him standing right in front of us while we're processing the crime scene like he is untouchable. I distinctly remember that.
Well, if you even
Yeah, you know what happened there, Tommy, too, with the murder of how it was kind of set up. Initially, Thor was with Ivy Davis and Kojak in the other building.
Yep.
And when Ramel Davis,
yeah, I think what Jimmy's saying is when he left, it was a phone call was made, and then that's why they dropped him in the lobby. But this, like, world and wise, like, yeah, the federal case starts like that's being potatoes, but they were shooting government witnesses even before that. And I think somebody said in one of your comments, Tommy, that the 8A precinct was really right across the street, but that was the boundary line, right? So
Right.
they killed somebody on the corner of the 8A.
Yep.
And then the guys from the 8A never even came out. They just ran back into their house. It was like a totally different world, right? The police were right across the street, but they were like, "Hey, that's a 7-9."
I know that place very well. We spent a lot of time there. Interesting stuff for sure. So yeah, so 3 days later, 99, and then if I've got my chronology, it kind of goes quiet for a little bit less than a year, but then in 2000, I want to say J.R. Hamilton gets shot in the 7-3. And then eBay is the Manhattan case. Again, August 1st, 2000, and then August 10th, 2000. So again, once the violence resurrects, then it gets hot really fast again. And, and then just so everyone knows, go into Comstat with these acts of violence that are all having the same names and the same players, and they're constantly asking, well, what are you doing about this? Where's the case? What's going on? Where's the case? So, yeah, so let's do JR and then eBay, because that Manhattan case is wild.
Yeah, so what World's Crew was doing is they and again, Jimmy, you tell me you throw the BS flag, but they were into everything. Like, you think about street kids who grew up in the ghetto, in the projects, right? But they had their hands in everything. They were selling drugs in and around the projects. Then they made a connection, right? Like, some of the stories that came out of this whole thing were absolutely incredible. Like, it started inside Lafayette Gardens in the lobbies of the buildings, and then it moved to the outside streets, and then more and more and more it grew. And then it started in the clubs of Manhattan, where they would go in and target like the rappers and the high end. I want to say and I could be wrong, but Tyson Beckford, like models. He was
a sex money murder member,
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay. They robbed him of all his jewelry in one of the clubs. Like, it was like matter of fact, like they were like the fire department, right? They were just waiting for a call. Where are we going? What club are we going? How many guns do we need? And then we're just going to go rob everybody. And the crazy part to that whole thing is, right, Damien Hardy's mother used to pawn the jewelry at all the different pawn shops. Like, down in Flatbush was like Jam, and then the Bronx. But they would do the robbery, give her all the jewelry, and then she would go, 70-year-old lady, she would go and do all of the different stuff.
Mike, didn't Damien Hardy's mother throw a party when Hamo got killed or something like that? There was a big thing about, like, Hamo's dead, let's throw a party, and they threw a big party. But I want to talk about Stephon Marbury. He got robbed in the 10th. These guys walked right up to him. He was sitting in a Bentley in the 10th precinct, and they knock on the window. He rolled down his window. They stick a gun in it. They steal like a $50,000 necklace, and then we take a phone call like 5 hours later that, the guy who did the robbery of Stephon Marbury in Manhattan he's a 7-9 guy. And then we call the 10th and we're like, hey, we know who your robber is. And they're like, how'd you know about this? It was like, our informant already called us and told us who did everything.
Yeah.
And then they called Stephon Marbury, and then Marbury calls back and says, yeah, I'm not cooperating. So
I gotta tell you, like, I know Jimmy dropped, but like when we did, like, it would be wrong of me not to mention. We're not gonna mention the agents that did it with us, but the HSI, the guys from HSI, who they really broke the case wide open, because at the end of the day, like I said, you have all the violence. You know who all the players are, but you can't get a witness to come forward, right? Especially in state court, right? So you can't get a witness to come forward. And one day we get a call in the office of like, hey, like, it's almost like, hey, jerk off, you got a dex in on this guy. It's like, yeah. And he's a target of our federal case. Yeah. And you go, okay, we're going to buy 6 kilos for him tonight in the airport parking lot in JFK. You guys want to come? I remember the Queen's chief, the chief of narcotics, being like, "Who are these assholes from the 7-9? Bringing in 6 keys when my guys don't know anything about it."
Right. All right, Mike. Let's go to June 10th, 2000. Quincy and Marcy. Homo gets shot and killed.
Yeah.
Carol Baum, Mike Tyson's bodyguard.
Right. So there's a lot of different conversations that lead up to that, but they wanted retribution. They wanted him, right? They wanted Homo. And I think it was Puff and eBay. They get a girl to set him up. He comes and meets her in the corner, and then they roll up and they just drop him on the corner. And that just really starts that whole chain of events, right? Because, we all respond out there for that. But like you don't really know what you have until you have it, and then then there's the rumors of Mike Tyson being involved and putting up a bounty on the guys who killed his boy, and so I think if I remember it right, Hamo might have been involved in shooting 50 a couple of days before that.
Well, let me bring that up. That's a good point. So Jimmy's having technical difficulties, folks. So please bear with him. But this is really interesting. So here's 50 Cent. Many Men is a song. And in the song, in the 3rd verse, 50 Cent's lyrics are, in the Bible, it says, what goes around comes around. Homo shot me. 3 weeks later, he got shot down. Now it's clear that I am here for a real reason, because he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing. All right. So what everyone needs to know is, Mike, can you validate, was this Fred Supreme McGriff that hired Homo to kill 50 Cent over rap stuff? That's what the legend is. I don't know if it's true. But the bottom line was, it was Homo in New Jersey in front of the DoubleTree that did this. And 3 weeks later, he gets dropped. And so that's the sequence.
So and again, we might have to double check that, because like when 50 gets shit, there was a shootout with World and the crew after the Magic Stick stuff on Hot 97, right? He made so there's an interview going on with Lil Kim and 50, right?
Over Magic Stick, the song Magic Stick.
Right.
Yep.
He disses her on the air at Hot 97.
Yes.
And at that point, there's a whole bunch of phone calls made. They go down to Hot 97. They're waiting for 50 to come out. And then at some point, he drives out to New Jersey. And when he gets out of his car at the hotel, and we had it all, right? Like I don't know, Pete, how it was up there when you did your cases, but like there was so many cases that were happening. You had all the proof, but it was almost like the U.S. Attorney's Office was like, no mas. We don't want to do it. We'll never stop. It really was like that.
At Eastern?
No, yeah, at Eastern. They were like, wait.
Oh, Southern was the opposite, man. Southern, like, bring it. And the thing that sucked is, like, you're doing a RICO case. Actually, like, I was doing sex, money, murder, and one of the defendants went to trial. During trial, we're proffering a guy for a spinoff case. So, I mean, it was like a fucking grind. So, in fact, I don't think there was any case that we did that didn't lead to at least one or two other cases. And we were handing cases off to other agents as well, because you can only do so much effectively. But yeah, Southern I think was a little bit more aggressive than Eastern. Dude, they would take anything. They never said no.
And I'll let Jimmy jump in. Jimmy, I don't know if you can hear me, but at some point, right, the guys at the U.S. Attorney's Office were like, no more. Like, we don't want to do the Russians doing accident crashes. We don't want to do no more. Right. We want nothing more to do with this.
Can you guys hear me or no?
Yes. Go, Jimmy. Did you hear Mike's question?
Because I don't see myself on it. I don't see anything right now. Okay. I'm sorry. It kind of cut out for about a good 10 minutes, I thought, here. So I missed a lot of the show. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good, buddy. We're just talking. It's like this is like we're having a phone call, baby. You know.
So Jimmy, hey Jimmy, from your perspective, right?
I'm sorry.
No, from your perspective in the FBI, right? When we did Lafayette Gardens, right? Like there was so many places it went. Like it went, to the crash stuff down with the Russians down in Coney Island. But at some point, the U.S. Attorney's Office said, let's pull back the reins on this. Like, we have enough. I mean, World and eBay got charged on a murder case. I mean, that they were a death penalty case in New York. And
yes.
And World went, he played that psycho route where they bring him back with all the medication to be normal so that they could execute him, And then they finally, at some point, said, no good.
Well, Holder, Mukoski was the AG, and he put the death penalty on these two guys. And then when Holder he's like, nope, no fucking death penalties for these guys. Don't worry about how many people they killed and how much terror they brought down on the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. And they will continue to kill. And by the way, they're fucking with guards all day long, right? Like that is a whole nother story about what they do.
I think simply for me, right? I was amazed. Like you hear the term domestic terrorism thrown around every day, like it's just thrown around. But there were truly people, the 2,600 residents that lived in Lafayette Gardens, who lived there terrified that they couldn't come out every single day, right? Like, right. And I'm sure it was the same way up in Manhattan. Like, you had a group of people who, for whatever circumstances, had to live in the projects, and they were truly terrorized by these individuals who lived there. You couldn't, if you took somebody out of their apartment as a witness for a homicide, you were basically signing their death warrant when they came back. Everybody knew, hey, Mike, the detectives were over at 11B. They went in, they stayed in there a few minutes later. They went in there for 20 minutes. Next thing you know, as soon as you left, that person at 11B got a visit. Their daughter got a visit in the stairwell. That was true domestic terrorism at its best. I
got a question.
You know what? To Mike's point, if you remember the how well they kind of controlled the whole projects there, where they put the fear of God into everybody, saying, you know what, this is our territory. Nobody could do anything without it coming through us. And there was a couple of stories that I recall where they actually did their own undercover operations. They went down to the 99 cent store in the bodega, sent CMB members in to buy crack.
All right, we're going to do let's do this. I'm going to tell Jimmy to sign off on the Wi-Fi. I'm going to take Sleepy Joe's recommendation to just sign in on his phone and run his.
I got a question for Mike while you're doing that, Tommy.
Hold on. He's coming in.
All right. It's actually.
Hold on. Let's do this. Hey, Jimmy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
I got
cut off the home Wi-Fi. Why don't you just sign in from your phone and then no video and then just talk in? Because I think the video's killing you. You don't have enough bandwidth. The FBI, the FBI and federal pensions are not sufficient.
They're not.
So,
I can tell you.
No. We got to get the
NYPD. FBI let them down.
Yeah. So here's my question, Mike. Two things. Number one, when you had multi-defendants, when you had the defendant conferences, do you ever see these guys like when all of a sudden one of them's missing because they're now signed the cooperation agreement? The reaction of the other guys that are standing there and realize that they got an insider that flipped? Tell me that's not fucking priceless.
No, 100%. Like we have one of the guys, one of our main cooperators did a home invasion robbery, right? And we charge them in state because if they can't do them, the feds will be like, "Can you do them in state, and we'll get them later on?" Yeah, no problem. So we did him in state. He had a parole violation, so we went upstate for a year and a half, right? We went up to visit him to try and flip him upstate, and he was like, "Nah, I ain't cooperating." We were like, "Okay, no problem." We left, and then the day he got released, we were back with an arrest warrant from the feds. And he was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And we're like, "No, we're driving down from Buffalo." We took him all the way back down. Right? Like, let him step out. His family's there, and then we like cuffed him up and bring him back. Drove him all the way back, and he was like, "This is crazy." We're like, "Yeah, dude, you're looking the numbers, Pete. That was got them, right? The numbers. What? I committed a robbery. It was a Hobbs Act robbery, a home invasion with a gun, and now we're gonna RICO you. You'll never get out. You'll do all of life in there."
Yeah, but I used to laugh, man. Like first you'd have like 13 defendants at a conference, then like you'd come back and you'd be like 10. So that means 3 people flipped, and the other guys are sitting there like, "What the fuck?" That was one thing that blew the line. And I don't know if you guys ever proffered people to what they were talking about in jail. Like we had separation orders for all these people that we did in sex, money, murder because we didn't want to talk to each other, coming up with stories. So we'd proffer dudes are like, "Yeah, man, they're talking to each other." We're like, "How? They're not even." Well, if you flush the toilet on one floor and you flush the other toilet on the floor below, they can talk through the pipes. And I'm like, man, can't these motherfuckers use their powers for good? You know what I mean? Like if you're that creative, that you can figure that shit out. How are you not? It just blew my mind, the stuff that you hear from these guys.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys just for our group thought that nobody would ever flip, because they had so much on each other. But then they realized, like, oh shit, these guys are just giving up their own shit too. Like they lost their minds. They were like, and again, guys would come in and be like, "Hey, do you know your cooperator, killed somebody in the hallway?" We'd be like, "Yeah, we got that already, big guy." And he's like, now what do I do now?
Right.
So Mike, Jimmy looks like Jimmy's getting his phone in. So while we're waiting for him to come back, just set up, because I'm fascinated by not only this level of violence, but the interaction with celebrities and the rappers, the boxers, and how it all infiltrates all these clubs, these nightclubs we've all been to, these worlds. And anyone who, again, I'm going to go back to The Wire when Hulk and Carter run into the gangbangers in the movie theater. Like, don't think for 1 second that this stuff does not weave into our lives. And it can happen anywhere. And when Nut gets shot and killed in Manhattan, and he hits the accelerator and runs over I think he was Swedish or Dutch filmmaker, and he just runs him over and kills him, and he gets his leg severed off his body, and they bring him to St. Vincent's, and they try to save him, but he dies on the table. Like, this stuff bleeds into our lives. Don't let anyone kid you.
Without a doubt, he's just a visitor, right, to New York City. He's doing what he does. He's doing what everybody does in Times Square, right? He's out walking around, he's just enjoying himself. And he gets hit by the car. And he got hit by the car because obviously they shot the guy inside of it. And that was all coordinated, right? And the funny, it's not funny, but like the thought that people don't really understand, like, is you don't really realize how violent people can be. And they don't give a shit about you. They'll kill everyone out there, and they don't care about you. There's no caring. And even when they're proffering the story and they're telling a story, it is kind of like the shark's dead eyes. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I had to kill that guy. Like, yeah. I would have killed everybody in the barbershop, if they asked me to.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, how are you doing there, buddy?
I'm good, King. You got me?
Yeah, this is good.
All right. Yeah.
You're on
Sorry
mute.
about that.
Marlon Bethel. Pete is on mute talking.
Oh, brother, your picture is clear. Your voice is clear. Definitely the right way to go, brother.
All right.
Good.
All right. Let's roll now.
All right. So let's talk about, let's get back to this. The celebrities, these cases. If you got the indictment and you guys and the 12 defendants who were involved. The 2 got life, should have been on death row, but they got Holder took them off death row. These other 12 defendants. Estimate how many other people were involved that should have been taken down, and talk about 6 murders, X number of robberies, X number of how much wider is this group really responsible for the terror in LG that you were talking about, Mike?
Jimmy?
You know what, Tommy, the way it broke down, we kind of picked off a few ahead of time. We did a couple of single cases. I remember, charging a kidnapping case, charging a drug conspiracy case. We took those guys down, flipped them as cooperators to then go ahead and, testify against the hierarchy of the crew. So really the last 12 that we took down was kind of the remaining members of CMB. There were a couple of, again, like Mike said earlier, to his point, there were a couple other members or associates that we could have taken down because they were on site of some of the murders. They kind of assisted in either holding them down or a getaway driver. But the U.S. Attorney's Office at some point just said, listen, let's take our best 6 homicides. Let's get the shooters. Let's get the active players. And, call it a day at that point there. There were a couple, you know what, Mike, other than an actual maybe 2 or 3 CMB members left who were just really drug dealers, I don't know of anybody else out there that we didn't pick up. The only other one was, what's his name, Haystack, who was actually killed a year later, I think, at Lafayette Gardens Day.
Right. I would advocate that. I always truly believe that we should have done World's Mother and some of the family members, because it was just evilness, right? That whole family was evilness, and they just were terrorists. They truly were terrorists.
Yeah. So,
like you said, they celebrated Peanut's death. They had that. They were playing they recorded videos of Eyewitness News, Channel 5 News, and they played them over and over again that night, laughing and just having a good time, and then continue to plot what's their next, who's their next hit. They just wanted to keep on going at that point.
Tommy, can I tell you my favorite story that came out of the Prophets? There was a major drug dealer in Queens. I forget his name, but he gets killed, and they bury him out in New Jersey, right? But he had bought his fiance a custom, 8-carat diamond ring, some crazy number, right? Crazy. They come back to Brownsville to do the wake. They're going to do the celebration of life for them inside one of the housing projects in Brownsville. World and his guys go in there and they rob her for the ring.
Of course.
He gives the ring to Lil Kim, who wears it in the Target commercial at Christmas.
That is so good. See, that's what you're only going to get at the Ten-Four Tavern. That's the kind of stories. That's what we're looking for.
That was the craziest story.
So good.
If you slow down the video, you can actually see her wearing it on her hand.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this. Let me do this one. Hold on a second. I got something really good. Ivory Peanut Davis, or Nut, or Peanut, was cast in Notorious B.I.G. and Lil Kim's Get Money video as her love interest in the Get Money video. And then he winds up being World's biggest rival.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you see what's going on here, people? It's crazy. And I'm going to go one more. I want to bring up the fact because we didn't address it yet. When Homo gets killed, Tyson not only pays for Homo's funeral and expenses and takes care of everybody And if do I remember this correctly, Mike? Did Tommy Caffrey catch Hamo, or
I think he did.
Yeah, because I think I distinctly remember a conversation where the sister called up and said, "Hey, my brother Daryl got killed," and then Tommy Caffrey, which is this whole conversation is fascinating to me. He says, "Hey, I'm really sorry for your loss, doing the right thing." And she's like, "I don't give a fuck about that. I just want to know when I can get his car and his fucking property back," or some shit like that. Like there was some crazy story about that. But Tyson pays for the funeral and then puts out a 50 grand hit. Tell everybody who Tyson put a 50 grand hit out on.
Well,
Damien Hardy.
so besides paying for the funeral expenses there, a couple of weeks later he had a fight with Louis Savarese over in Europe, and he ends up beating Savarese in 38 seconds. And then at the end of the fight there, he dedicated to Hamo, who basically says, until I meet you again, this was for you. You're the man. You're my brother. I love you, type thing. And then it's, basically put on the street, $50,000 to anybody that gives up or kills those involved with Hamo's death.
Yep. And then what's the response when Tyson puts out the 50K hit on World? What do you guys remember? What's World's response to that?
Yeah, World responded back and put a $50,000 hit on Tyson.
That's right. That's right.
They almost carried it out there on one occasion. They claimed Tyson was sleeping. He was unaware of his surroundings, and they caught him on Atlantic Avenue in, I believe, Bedford by the
shelter.
The shelter. And they were close to whacking him that day, but they held off. And also at that party with what's his name, the mother, World's mother there.
Mrs. Hardy.
Then they discussed talking about hitting Tyson at that point in time, and moved Shelby Henderson. Basically talked him out of it, saying, "No, he's Muslim. We shouldn't hit him. Let's move forward from this. No, let's stay away from it there." But World wanted no part of it there. He wanted, again, it was $50,000 on his head. Well, I want to strike first, which was, World wasn't taking any prisoners. He was going to get you before you got him.
Yep. So talk about, thanks, Jimmy. Perfect, because that's exactly it. And it's so crazy to me. You talked about peripheral players, and I think Zara Sarkisian was never charged. Is that true? Because Sarkisian is alleged, and I'm reading some of the documents, that he was the driver in a lot of these hits. Does that name sound familiar?
Yeah, two brothers, the Sarkisians.
Yeah. Okay. So and to your point, Mike, earlier, what I'm trying to let the audience know is there's so many peripheral players who are so involved in the conspiracy, because this is a RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization, that the prosecutors are like, stop. And Tony Vigiani, who did a great Trinidadian RICO case on drug dealers in the 7-7, when I was there as a sergeant, I remember him telling me the prosecutor said, stop talking to people.
Tommy,
we have to stop and wrap this case up.
I really might not have ever retired. I got to be honest with you. Like, you could have made case after case after case, and Jimmy and I could have went, okay, now we're going down this path. Like, there was a whole group of other people. But I just got the feeling that at some point the U.S. attorney was overwhelmed, and he was just like, that was it,
Yeah, but that was the difference, Tommy. Like I said earlier, between Southern and Eastern. Like the 6 Money murder case started in '97. We went with spinoffs. I left for Phoenix in 2007. And then for about another 8 to 10 years, other agents that were still in New York were working cases that were spinoffs of that. And then they got promoted and moved on. So, I mean, that was the difference, I think, is that SDNY didn't ever have a brake pedal, which at times was a pain in the ass.
Well, that's even for narcotics. When we were there, we would go into special narcotics in Manhattan to write our warrant, because the Brooklyn, the Brooklyn DA. Pete, what is like the things that make you laugh are like, we had a cooperator, right, Jimmy? And then that cooperator was actually a witness in a homicide trial, but he lied.
Oh,
Right. On state. So then he profited and gave up the right version in the Fed, right? But we had to bring him over to the state trial, and the state's like, well, what do you mean he lied? Like, he's not going to testify. He's going to take the fifth.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was really crazy.
So I think what I'm getting out of all of this, and I want the audience to really understand, is the complexity of putting together a criminal investigation, specifically a homicide, when they talk about clearance rates. And I know from being in the chair and having to go to CompStat, we're looking at a 65, 75, 85% clearance rate. And they're sitting there and you got all these homicides and you're going to CompStat and you're talking to the executive levels for accountability and responsibility and closing these cases. I would say of all the violence, Mike and Pete, you worked it. Jimmy, from the Fed side, it's a little different perspective, so I'm not trying to exclude you. But we're trying to put these cases together. We're being judged by our stats. And I would go to CompStat, 99% of the time, I know who's involved and I know who the players are, but only we're solving 20% of them, 30% of them, because of the terror and the intimidation that you're talking about. And then the stats get swayed because of the easy ones. None of them are ever easy because there's a lot of work to even getting an obvious case, but you still got to do it right. You still got to build the evidence and you still got to put it together and you still got to go to the prosecutor. But the ones that are spontaneous and the ones that are domestic and the ones that are known to each other, like if you look at the stats, there's the street violence that are really hard to solve, but 99% you know who did what, and you've got all that information. And then you've got all the other kinds of murders and shootings and serious assaults that could end up in shootings that you can put together. So when you bunch all that together, the stats come into that national average of 65, 75%. And it's just really fascinating. So I want everyone to know that the detectives in New York City, all 5 boroughs, the gang violence and the street violence and the drug violence, they pretty much know exactly what's going on and who's doing what. Bringing in a case to a prosecutor is an entirely different animal. Would you guys all agree with that?
yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
So, okay. Wrap up with CMB. We're an hour and a half into this bad boy. We'll do a little bit of Operation Gunsmoke because I think it's also important for the audience to understand that you guys were doing 2 RICOs kind of overlapping each other, which is no small task at all. One's enough. So 2 overlapping each other in the confines of the 1.1 square mile of God's little acre of Bedside 7-9 precinct. So wrap up. Any final thoughts on CMB?
So, and Jimmy, keep me honest, right? So when you think about World and you hear this story, this is not just a kid from Lafayette Gardens. This is a kid from Lafayette Gardens who created a drug enterprise that was making, you would actually think it would be like, I forget, Walter White said it best on Breaking Bad. Like, you take me down, I have a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. He was everywhere. He was in the gangs. He was in the Muslim stuff. He was in he had gone, when we apprehended him, he was flying back from Jordan, right? He had flown to Jordan, got into Fallujah somehow, tried to get into Israel. They turned him back. He went back to Jordan. They put him on a plane with flex cuffs and said, no, you're going back to the United States. Like, think about that. Like, that's a kid from the projects, right? Like, he had a lot of reach and he was everywhere. Everything that went on, he was making money. He had a piece of the bump and run accidents with the Russian doctors down in Coney Island. I gotta tell you, that was like a multi-million-dollar industry that he had a whole separate crew doing that. He had a whole separate crew that was doing like, what you would call like the retail organized theft. He had a crew doing that. He had a crew doing shootings. He had the mom and pop weed store. It was baffling at some point when guys came in and told stories. There was a proffer where, and Jimmy, I think you sat in that proffer, but there was a proffer where they go, "Hey, get the guys. We're gonna go down and kill Bush." And the guy's like, "Okay, that's the rival drug dealer from Lafayette Gardens, right? Yeah, no problem." But then they drive into Manhattan and they park by the UN. And they go, "World's on a satellite phone." And then all of a sudden, the presidential motorcade goes by. And he goes, "Yeah, there he is. That's the guy we're going to get." And half the guys in the car were like, "Wait, what?" Wait, what? But that was at the end, right before like we grabbed him. That was some crazy stuff. Like everybody in the room, the U.S. attorney and everything. I think Sean at that point, I think he went white and he had to step out. He was like, "What's going on?"
Because they're thinking, no, he's going to, the rival dealer Bush. Instead, world's at, they're looking to go get George Bush.
Yeah. So funny. Hey guys, I'm going to pull up some pictures to wrap up the CMB just to show everybody like who was intertwined with who. So here's a picture of Jada Kiss, Mike Tyson,
Come on,
Jada Kiss.
Jada Kiss.
Like, do you think I do like LL Cool J though. I will say I do like LL Cool J. Styles P, Homo, Tyson at a table, right? Damian Hardy, Lil Kim, Ivory Nutt, and Darryl Baum. This is Homo who got killed with Ivory Davis. This is the video. I did that already. That was us. So that's it. So, these guys were all intertwined with each other. Here's Lil Kim and Foxy Brown. They were actually rivals, but there was also interaction between them. And I was in the 7-7 as a sergeant, and Foxy Brown's house was a home invasion when she was sleeping, and she came into the 7-7 squad, Foxy Brown, and like, yeah, I don't know who did it. This is all intertwined. It's all the same shit. They're all robbing each other blind.
Without a doubt. And the funny part to that whole stuff is like when we served Lil Kim with the subpoena, like I cannot go down JFK gate 38 without waiting. Like we were waiting at the bottom of the jetway for her. She came walking down, and then we served her with the subpoena. And it's so funny because I tell everybody like, that was crazy. Yeah, so good. So good.
Oh God. And then all of these people are surprised by the corruption and the total craziness of P. Diddy.
Well,
who's surprised? What cop in our world in 1999, what year did Diddy and J-Lo throw the guns out of the car? Was that 99, 2000-ish?
It was around there. But Tommy, we investigated Diddy's crew for a disembowelment of a dude in Co-op City where Diddy's name, we couldn't pin it on him. But yeah, it was him, the guy who got shot. That was his guard that took the weight for that gun, by the way. Wolf, a guy named Anthony Jones was involved in the stabbing. Another guy named Harold. I'm not going to mention the last name because we couldn't prove it. But yeah, man, Diddy's not clean by any stretch. He was dirty since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So what I think about is Diddy in the Hamptons, in his whiteout parties with all the celebrities and Martha Stewart and all of these people. And I'm like, you people have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea.
And nobody takes the time to truly speak to, and like even when you were on patrol and you had like the victims who were victimized inside the project.
Of
right?
course.
Like, everything went through World. So if you did a street robbery, you gave him like a taste, like it was the mafia, right? Like, so he got a piece of it.
There was a tax for everything.
Right.
There was a tax for everything.
So you think of the average person who lives on the 14th floor of the housing projects where the elevators are controlled by the dealers. So in other words, if you don't pay the money, you don't take the elevator up. So then you have to walk your kids up 14 floors. It is, I mean, that is pure terror, like pure terror. 96, they shot, Jimmy, you remember Maurice, right? From
Yep.
from the gang? Good. He was my undercover. They shot him in the, as he left to buy in 456 decal. They shot him, like that was crazy. It was crazy.
And Mike, if you remember this too, how much of an impact they had on the community there. You remember that interview? It was youth basketball coach from Lafayette Gardens. He had a basketball team, 12, 13-year-olds. They would practice at the courtyard, the basketball court, shooting around, doing what kids do best. And he knew that anytime World was in and around the projects or he would see his face, he would have to, he actually had a photograph of World and secretly show the kids to come running over to the bench and basically take cover because he felt that if World wasn't shooting, somebody was shooting at World. So, this poor youth basketball coach is, trying to teach the game to some of these kids, all 12, 13 years old. And, World pops up and is walking through the courtyards or in and around the courtyards, and everything comes to a complete halt. And they got to, basically hide for cover.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do narcotics, right? Like in the project. Like I don't know about you. Pete, I don't know, but like
We couldn't do ice.
right.
Yeah.
Like
They have a self-contained market. They know who everybody is. They know who their buyers are. We could not insert undercovers at all.
and not that I would even any of my undercovers, I would never say to them like, you don't go a floor or two up because if they lock the door, it's a magnetic door, you can't get in.
You're done.
Unless you're doing it right there, like they had like a whole market, and some of those places they just had all the customers never came from the outside. They were all like 20 stories. They would just come down to the second floor. It was crazy. It really was.
100%.
No, you have to you gave them your email address, you created a password, you set up a profile, and you're inside. Like that was the pre-technology world of like, no, this is our customer base. And if you're outside of that, you got to register with us. And then you got to prove yourself and you got to fucking load up your credit card and everything.
What do you think of New York City Housing Authority, right? New York City Housing Authority said, what we're going to do? We're going to put magnetic doors on so everybody will be safe. And then what they did is everybody who came in, they robbed them of their key. So the only way you could get in is if they let you in.
If they let you in, yeah.
Like
Imagine being let in to your own home by fucking drug dealers. Imagine.
Crazy
And then if I tell this to people who don't know, they say I'm bullshitting them and I'm fucking with them.
Hey, this has nothing to do with the Lafayette Gardens case, but we actually took the U.S. Attorney's Office on a tour of the Marcy projects. So, like when you think about this, they rolled up in their SUVs, right? And they had their, Prada shoes on, whatever fancy shit that they wore. We got to the elevator, and the lady was like, "What is that?" And we're like, "Oh, that's a urine puddle, and that's a lump of shit." And they were like, "Okay, we've seen enough."
No, it's the best. It's the best. They have people have no idea. All right, listen. Finish up with World. What they didn't hear about Damian Hardy, World, the Damian World Hardy, depending on air quotes, for his street name. Tell everyone his journey to the Middle East and his Mecca and his becoming Muslim and how it protected him. Jimmy touched on it a little bit earlier on because they all turned and became Muslim, and that's why they didn't kill Mike Tyson, because he accepted Islam into his world, not the world, but into his life. Give him that, and then we'll wrap up CMB, and then we'll go into Gunsmoke, and then we'll wrap up.
Hey, Jimmy, you want to start it off?
Okay, well, just really touching base with his trip overseas. It was like I believe it was July 2004.
Yep.
He got a flight. He was going to the Mecca. He was going to some sort of religious retreat out there. He ended up, like Mike said, he ended up trying to going to Jordan, then flying into Iraq afterwards. And then he was preaching at a couple of different mosques throughout Morocco and Iraq. And if I remember when he arrived back at the airport, he actually had like some sort of business cards. Most of them were in Arabic, of course, but showing different mosques that he actually attended while he was over there. He tried to get in there. Israel outright said, no, we don't want you. They took him and put him down to Jordan. And then Jordan just said, we don't want you either because of, I guess, some of the things he was talking or trying to teach or lecture different people on over there, that they just said, listen, here's a one-way ticket back to the United States. Get out of here. And that's, once he arrived in the airport, he was initially charged just with a drug conspiracy case and enough to hold him until the federal indictment came down, 6-8 months later, whenever it came down.
But he was crazy.
So that was kind of his whole trip overseas there. And like you said, with the Muslim stuff, it seemed like they went from Cash Money Brothers. At one point, they all became Bloods because that was that big thing to do back in like 97, 98. So they were all Blood members. Eventually, they went to the, Muslims. They all became Muslims. And, on top of that, they were all breaking into the rap business, too. Word wanted to, he wanted to be famous into the rap business. He was trying to produce artists to get into the rap business. And I remember during the trial, one of the witnesses was testifying to an altercation that occurred at the radio station where they threatened to kill the radio disc jockey because he would not give them, as he explained it, 5 bombs. Nobody really knew what that meant. And the judge actually thought that there was like bombs involved, like explosives. And the witness actually had to clarify his statements and say, no, he would press a button 5 times and you would hear some sort of explosion. And each explosion was how good the song was. So you could go from a 1 bomb to 5 bombs, 1 being basically crap or shit, and a 5, oh, this is a great song. So he was pushing his rappers to go in and pushing their songs to get through just become a hip hop producer. He really wanted to get into that type of business.
And all of those guys that were surrounded with him that were part of the crew got nothing. Like, he didn't give them anything. It wasn't like we were all making money. Like, they got nothing. He shit on them all the time. And that was the craziness. I'll say it again, like the 6 or 7 homicides that you read in the U.S. Attorney's office is nothing compared to the profits that you set down. And guys they would like, and again, sitting in a profit, you're like, as a detective, you have to work that in. But at the proffer, we gave this guy a sandwich. I forget what he asked for. Let's just say it was a fish sandwich. He gets the fish sandwich and he leans back and he goes, hey, Mike, Kevin, which one of you guys caught the old man, who died in the, 90 in the stairwell? And my partner, Kevin, goes, yeah, I did. He goes, what do you got on? And he goes, we got nothing. The dude was dead in the stairwell. He goes, yeah. He goes, Kev, I like you. For another sandwich? He goes, I'm telling you, I did that one. My lawyer said I got to tell you everything. He goes, I was 12 years old, and I dropped that guy for the crew, like when he was coming up. He goes, that was my first murder. He goes, I could have got away with that. And you're sitting there going, that case is from 1990. Now it's 2008 or 9. You're like, nothing. We had to dig that thing out of the basement, Tommy. You know how that was, right? We had to pull all the boxes off of it, brush off the dust.
I do. Well, thank God for Jimmy Trevor. Remember when he finally got all our cases together?
I remember him blowing the office clean with the leaf blower.
Just a little side story for everybody. The detective squads in 1999 were kind of in disarray, disrepair, and we had a restricted duty detective, and I asked him to get the homicide cases in order and put them in chronological order. And I said, we need to spruce up this little office a little bit, get some things fixed, get telephone repair, get all of that stuff in. And I don't remember exactly who walked in, but he was literally blowing out the office with a leaf blower.
A gas leaf blower.
A gas leaf blower, not even electric. He didn't even plug it in.
Poisoning. Nice.
Yeah. So that is a very, very typical NYPD at the time behavior. Get it done at no matter what cost, no matter how. People brought in their own furniture. People brought in their own chairs. People brought their own computers. Pete will tell you stories endlessly about stealing IBM electric Selectrite balls.
They took my balls.
Kudos to all the detectives that we ever worked with that just did whatever they needed to do to get the job done, because the job expected you to do the job, but they gave you nothing to do it with.
Correct.
We were surrounded with greatness, right, Pete? It was just, I mean, I look back on my time at NYPD, and I legitimately was surrounded by greatness. One guy was better than the next, and every single guy you met, and everybody, when you came to do a case, like when I was lucky enough to meet with Jimmy and the guys from HSI, were the greatest guys in the world to deal with, and they were just solid all the way around. And like you knew the case was going. Like these guys were on board, and everybody came in the same day with the same amount of energy that they made it work. You know?
Brother, the thing that made changed the game wasn't just the federal prison sentence and the U.S. attorney's offices like being willing to work their ass off. Dude, it was the resources that the feds brought. When I was in Bronx homicide, we had 35 detectives when you include night watch. We had like 4 working vehicles. Right? Feds come in, hey, you need cars, we'll lease your cars. You need this, hey, with no problem. I was driving a Cadillac CTS during Sex Money Murder.
All right. We did that. Enough of CMB. Let's do. So this is what I brought up before on Gunsmoke. Not nearly as sensational, but still equally important because of the death and the terror that they instilled. So Mike, Jimmy, I'm going to defer to you guys. Kevin Slag, Mike Prate, Jimmy Glynn, takedown of Operation Gunsmoke. Let's do it.
So, Jimmy, if I remember this right, this is the first one we started.
Correct.
This is where we started, right?
Yes,
So,
correct.
again, I'm going to go back to the 7-9 has the Lafayette Gardens. They have the Sumner Houses. They have the Tompkins Houses. They have Marcy Houses, right? Like, legitimately, Jimmy and I, like, just like other guys like Pete and the guys over in the 7-3, you could make a career out of just locking down one project and then just banging out the murders, because it all goes back to the domestic terrorism. This family, the Martins, roughshotted everybody in the projects. They bullied them, right? That's the true term of bullying. Like, you couldn't walk down the street, they would shoot you in the leg, like, right? All this different stuff, right? Yeah. And we had the numbers, we knew the people, and then we just worked it out. And Jimmy was like, I have to tell you, like, it really, for me as a detective, to connect with Jimmy Glynn, I was like, holy shit, because like Pete said, man, Jimmy bring the cash, right? He bring the power, he bring the money. Like, there was no more fucking around. Like, at CMB, when we used to drive, guys would be like, throw you the F-bomb and be like, you drive by the 7-9 and you just pass by and then make that right on Lexington. And they'd be like, yo, where you going? And you'd be like, we're going someplace different, my man.
Oh, they love that. I had like fucking hardcore criminals that when we drive past Bronx Central Booking and get on the FDR drive south, would throw up in the fucking car, crying. Like, really? Oh man! And then when you get to the federal courthouse, bro, I don't know how Brooklyn court was. I imagine it was the same. In Bronx court, you had the COs constantly yelling at people. Yo, man, no laying down on a bench. Hey, motherfucker, take your hat off. Right? Where in federal court, it's like church. It's quiet. It's carpeted. People are sitting there. People are scared. It's a completely different element, man. Like Bronx court was like a free for all. Not federal court. You did not fuck around. And I've been to EDNY. It's the same thing. I've never been to Brooklyn court, or at least I don't remember being there. So I mean, these guys, it's an eye opener. Then you start hearing the sentences. They're like, "What the fuck?" And I'm not gonna be at Rikers? Oh man. What do you mean, Lompoc in California? My family can't visit me there. Hey, we don't give a shit.
Yeah. And it was the numbers, right? Like, oh, you sold 50 grams. that was 10 years. And then you sold, oh, you had a gun? Oh, that was another 10 years. And then by the time you looked at it, it was like football numbers, right? And we used to laugh because we were like, shit, we struggled to get guys to confess.
Tell me it didn't fuck them up. Then in federal court, Tommy, you might not realize this. When they read out sentences, it's months. So you're going to be sentenced to like 480 months. So they're sitting there like doing the math, if they could do the math. And then when they figure it out, they'd shit themselves. Because like, holy fuck. Like, oh, wait a minute. It's 40 years. Oh, man. Dude. Yeah.
And then when you threw them into you were just a guy who was selling crack outside the building. But now you're lumped into the RICO case. And now you're going to eat whatever the RICO guys eat. And you're like, wait. That's why guys started parachuting out, right? They were like, wait a second. I'm looking at life. Or these two guys are looking at the death penalty. They're talking about giving the death penalty to everybody.
Yeah. No, hey, Tommy, you know Jimmy Needles?
Yes, of course.
Jimmy Needles did the Chicago case on the Cabrini Greens with the gangsters.
Yes, Cabrini, which no longer exists, by the way.
No, but I mean, it's a legendary case. In that RICO case, a dude had to eat a murder that happened before he was born. During the enterprise, right? You're getting charged.
Yeah, you're part of the enterprise, right?
So he joined the enterprise like way after the murder happened. He had to eat that murder as part of being part of that enterprise.
So I want to say something right now because I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because when we're winning, because when I say we're winning, we're putting bad people away. But I want to tell a story. When I got to the 7-9 squad, and I had and Pete, you talk about this all the time, the senior detectives that you like absorbed all the information from, right? Sorry, guys. Gonna loosen
Now you
up
look like
now.
one of those senior detectives.
Yeah. Now. And then our players who were starting to do the violence, and then the senior detectives would go, "Oh, I know that kid. I know his father. I locked up his father. I locked up his uncle. I locked up his father." And then I have this exposure in my time on the job, and then I retire, and I'm still talking to Mike who stayed on, and I'm still talking about the young detectives, and they're like, hey, Tommy, remember when we locked up X, Y, or Z? I just locked up his kid. And then I realize it's 3 generations of the same freaking thing. And Mike, you're shaking your head. Jimmy, you're shaking your head. And I know, and Pete, you certainly know this. We've talked about it. We talk, 5 times a week. But this is gotta stop. You gotta break this cycle because they have no future. They're terrorizing their neighbors and they're like, and it's just doesn't stop. And so I am not surprised to hear that there's a kid who's born into and becomes a young adult 20 years later, probably, maybe 15, 20 years later, becomes part of the corrupt organization and probably lived a short adult life and then is now facing life imprisonment without parole and then is absorbed into and taking ownership on a homicide that he wasn't even born. Like, that is the most
Tommy,
unbelievable thing I've ever heard.
let me tell you,
People need to hear it.
They do. A lot of the sex money murder kids, including Peter Rolock himself. Peter Rolock's father was part of Nicky Barnes's crew. So he was in prison forever. He was going away. He's out now. His name was Leonard Rolock. So when Leonard Rolock went away, Peter Rolock was a young kid, man. And look, he was going to be a thug. He already determined he was going to do it. But the mother emboldened him. The mother had him out there slinging. The mother expected him to do things because he was now the source of support, slinging drugs. And I saw that dynamic with quite a few of the other SSM guys was that their father was in jail, so he's no longer in the picture. Mama wasn't, didn't have an education, was going to, some of these women were nurses and they tried to raise their kids the right way. That wasn't always the case. Some of them were like, no, son, you need to go out there and you need to sell so mommy can have a roof over her head. So you had the father was a deadbeat because he was a criminal, and you had the mother that expected the son to go out there and follow suit so that she could have nice sneakers and, have all the nice things in the house. I mean, I saw that a lot, which was heartbreaking because you had both the father and the mother betraying the kid, and then that kid's going to be a criminal for the rest of their life.
Well, you look at Damien Hardy's mother, right? Like she's no good mother. Like she was encouraging those boys. She was reaping the benefits of everything that they did.
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing in the Martin case. The mother was reaping the benefits of everything that they did, and still living on the arm, right? Getting benefits, living in public housing. Like everything was paid for, right? Like so, and they were getting, and that was like the bullshit of it all. Like you had all the people who were working hard, who were struggling, that their family was just beating them down every day. You know, it was painful. It's sad. It actually is sad. I don't think it ever changes, right? Because if you look at the 7-9 and you look around Lafayette Gardens, it's gentrified now. Like all the factory buildings.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? Like all
the best.
I retired in 2012. You would do an interview for a shooting at Lafayette Gardens. You went to one of the factory buildings that they converted to brownstones. They played music so loud that like calming music, of course, that people would be like, there was a shooting down the block? Like, I didn't know anything about it. Kind of like that, you know.
I have a great story on remember the kids who moved in and they thought it was Bedford Heights instead of Bedford Heights? And then Tommy Caffrey caught the home invasion, shots fired. And they're like, Bedford Stuyvesant, what are you talking about? This is Bedford Heights. And it was like, no, it's Bed-Stuy. And then Sleepy Joe, Hipsterland. So
Urban Pioneers and whatever.
Pioneers, yeah.
You know, and Peter, like when you went into Brooklyn, right? Like when I went in '85, I drove with my father. My first day in was a Sunday to drop off all my gear, and all the church ladies were out. It was like The Wire. Like the church ladies were out with a big hat. My father was like, and we were born and raised in Brooklyn. My father was like, this doesn't look bad. And then on Monday night on the floor of 12, I was on Pacific and Nostrand, and I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Right? 9 million people out. Everybody's angry. You know, like no cell phone. You had a pocket full of quarters to call mom and dad. It was crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's do more. Anything you want to talk about more on the Martins and the Gunsmoke? Why don't we do this? We're 8:52 p.m. Eastern, so we're almost 2 hours. So not a lot of sensationalism. There's so much cool stuff to talk about. CMB with the celebrities, but this was not as sensational, but equally as violent. What was the wrap up? How many people went to jail for how long? Who, like, give us the summary of this RICO takedown.
Yeah, I think it was around the same. We did 12, 13, 14 individuals charged in the whole Martin family crime unit there. All based, obviously, it was all based out of Sumner Houses.
Yep.
One of the buildings they controlled was 303 Vernon.
Yep.
And that's a building that made them a lot of money. You know,
Yes.
you talk about how many floors and how many individuals that were addicted to crack cocaine back at those days in that one particular building. They were making a fortune there. One of the other things they were doing were going up to Schenectady in New York. They were making a fortune there, and they were bringing girls as young as 14, 15 years old, and giving them 125 grams of crack cocaine and putting them on the bus up to Albany and then getting off and then going into Schenectady there, where they had safe houses set up, at least 3 or 4 safe houses set up throughout the town there, and they were pushing a lot of weight up there. I guess the case really broke, like if you remember, was the kidnapping of the young girl, 17 years old. They gave her a bundle of crack cocaine to go to Schenectady.
Yep. And
she showed it to her boyfriend, and he goes, hell no, let's go to Altoona, Pennsylvania. And basically just wanted to rip him off, which is what he did. They found her kind of just walking around in the park, and they kidnapped her and told her until the crack cocaine comes back, they're holding her. They brought her up to Schenectady based on coordination between NYPD, Schenectady PD. They hit the locations up in Schenectady and found her up there. She was then brought down to Manhattan that night, and we interviewed her with major case detectives over at One Police Plaza there, and that kind of kicked the whole idea where, again, we just charged a couple of guys early on with kidnapping and drug possession and drug conspiracy, and then worked the couple murders in, later on.
We met one of the funniest guys you would ever meet up at Schenectady PV, right? Like one of the detectives up there. They didn't have any computers, right? They had a card catalog system. And this guy had a step ladder. And he was like, "Oh, you're looking for this guy?" And he would jump up on the ladder. It was the fun, like, I'm still friends with him today. And it's the funniest thing, like, to see him. So when we had gone up there, this is Jimmy, and you tell me, they told us, "Hey, you can't come up to Schenectady PD with the FBI," because the FBI had just done a case on Schenectady PD.
That's so good.
I didn't get a really warm welcoming out there.
Right.
It did warm up to me after a while, but the first time up there.
I think that first time up there, we told Jimmy, hang at the bar. Me and Kevin went up. So me and Kevin in shirts and ties, NYPD detectives, right? We got with stink eye because they were like, they thought we were the FBI. Meanwhile, they were in the bar with Jimmy drinking, right? We walked in, the guy's like, "Oh, the FBI's here." We're like, "Big guy, the FBI has been here."
So I told you, I said at the beginning, the least obvious FBI agent I ever met.
Swear to God.
Oh, no, it's so good. But here, I want to say something. So let's do some comments. Diddy 2497, the Mayo family in the 79 and the 81. So Mayo and Truluck, two other names, and then Terry Murnane, appreciate Terry, Brooklyn North Homicide, May and Razor. So a lot of names are coming up. One
of the Mayos was NFL. He was an NFL punt returner.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Mike, cut in on one thing with the Operation Gunsmoke. If you remember this story, I believe we went out to Altoona to talk to some people involved.
Isn't that where that white kid got arrested, Altoona?
Yeah.
For killing the U.S. healthcare.
It was Kevin Slag, Mike, and Anthony Grubasek, who was working with us at the time, and we went to I had the undercover car, the BMW, and we took it out to Altoona there, and we pulled up to interview somebody in their home. We pulled into the driveway, and as we pulled around, they were all partying next door. They all freaked out because they thought we were mob guys coming out for a hit. So we approached them, and they were like, "Uh-oh," and their faces just dropped. I mean, they turned white, and the faces just dropped, and they thought we were actual mob guys that were up there to hit. And then we told them, "No, we're looking for so-and-so," who we eventually did find. But, it was just funny when you have about 40 people that just kind of, cringe, and, they were scared.
Well, Tommy, you talk about this touching everybody, right? You talk about this touching everybody. Pete will know this, right? Like, at the end of the day, these guys would go down to Altoona, Pennsylvania, and they'd hook up with the college girls, and they get them all jammed up on heroin, right? So these are our daughters who go away to school, and they're doing the great thing, right? Next thing you know, the girls are going in to buy guns because they could buy it with their driver's license, right? Yep. So you'd have your perp from the Marcy houses walk in, pick the guns that he wanted, tell the girl what she wanted. She'd buy them, give them to him, and then report them stolen the next day. What has she done, right? She's committed a felony. So, like, that whole case then had a whole bunch of people from Pennsylvania that were all jammed up because of the bad decisions that they made. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, for sex, money, murder, again, different story. Same thing. You had Charlotte, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Binghamton. That was their cities. So it's funny how these New York City guys know that, hey, if I take a $5 vial of crack here in New York City, in the Bronx, and I bring it up to Binghamton, it's worth $15. Same thing in like Pittsburgh. So I mean, look, they're entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? They're not stupid people. They're scumbags.
They're not stupid. They're not stupid. They're not stupid.
You know what was really funny, and like NYPD has a lot of resources, right? But like to get a phone subpoena, you had to jump through all kinds of hoops, right? Like I had
a dump. Forget about it. $500.
I had a really good buddy in the state police, and he would be like, "All you have to do is show a 518 number." show 15189,
518.
and we're in. You know, we got a nexus to do what we have to do, and he'll write the warrants, and he did. And we really ended up with a lot of good stuff. The guys up in Schenectady, like at first you walk up there and you're like, what's happening here with the card catalog? It's like a library. Like and every person that they touch goes on an index card, and then the index card gets filed, and they know where every index card is. That shit was crazy, right? And then you realize like these guys own the town. Like they truly do own the town. Like when you went out with them, we went out, we had our CI in the car, and they said to us, Kevin and I, dudes come up to us and we have a police vest on and everything. And they go, hey, what are you guys looking for? We're like, what do you get the fuck out of here. And they're like, no, what do you want? You know, crack, heroin. We went back and said, hey, these guys just tried to sell us in the car. They were like, that's not right. And they went out there and locked up it.
Yeah. Hey, so what about a little shout out to our buddy Tony Ryan in Albany PD? Right.
Tony Ryan is the best.
Oh my God. We watched that guy, detective in Albany PD, and the next thing I turn around, he's like the chief of police or something like that. Big
That's
shot,
right,
chief of
police.
detectives.
But you know what the biggest story is here, man? Wherever we went, whether you guys talk about going up to Schenectady or these other places you had to go, wherever I had to go, you know, and even not related to the federal shit. We go down to Miami because some dude shot somebody, like with the Pagani case, right? They ran down there.
Yep.
We're family. Guys who carry a badge and a gun. We have no tolerance for fucking dirty cops. None of us do, right? But cops are family. You know, and that's one thing, man, I'm really proud of being in the profession is that I got to meet a lot of really great guys and gals doing amazing shit all over the United States. And the reality is, man, we're family.
100%. The best group. Like I tell everybody all the time, right? Like this is the best job ever, right? Like, you know, it's almost like from the movie Fury, right? When they're like best job ever. It legitimately was. Like I was sad when I retired. I'm actually sad at times today. I'm like, but you know, like you realize, you know, you mentally realize that you can't be there today. But the guys that I've been surrounded with, the guys like Tommy, the guys like Chris Kindle, the guys like Kevin Slag, George Farback, like these guys. And then there's a bunch of people I won't mention their names because I don't know if they feel comfortable, but like they truly are like excellent guys who've done excellent stuff and they've done so much for the community. And it's just, it really was like, it was crazy.
It's a noble profession.
Oh my God.
The most noble.
Bags, but there are some. But it's a noble profession staffed by some amazing people. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, they're ordinary people put in amazing circumstances.
Yeah, we weed those fuckers out. We weed those fuckers out, Pete.
Right.
Fuck them. We don't like them. We know who they are. They've been ostracized, and they're not in the loop. They're not on the text threads. They're not in the same groups. They're not invited back to the dinners that we fucking all get together all across the country. So
my friends from the Midnights in the late 80s, early 90s are still my friends today. Like that's like
same here.
All right, guys, we are 2 hours in. I'm going to give you some final thoughts. I'm going to bring Hansi back. Hansi, you ready?
Hey,
Georgie Farback, you're going to wrap up. So, Georgie, I'm sure you've listened in and 2 great cases with people that you worked with very closely, Brooklyn North Homicide, 7-9 Squad, the violence that we saw in the 7-9 precinct, 1.1 square miles, God's little acre. Thank you for the leadership that you did as a senior member of the detective squad, working your way up, and as a union member protecting their interests. Truly, as Mike just said, the most noble profession, and truly the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen, because regardless of what anyone says, because I don't really give a shit what anyone says, we truly cared about the community we served. I'm looking, I see no diversity in this panel here, a bunch of white guys who really truly cared about the African-American community in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I don't care. Anyone can say anything they want. I know who the good-working, hard-working people of that community was, and I know who the terrorists were in that community, and I would do it again every single day, all the time. So George, this is your detective, Mike Prate, that you represented. Any final thoughts before we wrap up and I do some house cleaning on the podcast stuff?
You know what? Just a quick funny story. So when I got to the 7-9 in 92, Glynn was our PAA. And after I was there for a day or two, I had to go out and do something. She says, you better be careful. And I was like, take it easy. I said, I worked up in Harlem. I worked in Manhattan, North Narcotics. And she looked at me, she goes, this isn't Harlem. This is Bedford-Stuyvesant.
It's true.
And she was right, because I hadn't seen shit like this. But, just to follow up with Mike and with Jimmy, if you don't take the time to pull a case like this, and, Mike saw what it was, grabbed Jimmy, needed the Fed resources, needed somebody to work with, none of this shit ever gets solved. Because the guy in the squad doesn't have the time, the resources to do it. The guy in the homicide squad that works with the guy in the squad, he's catching someplace else tomorrow. So if guys like Mike and Jimmy don't do things like this, all these murders don't get solved.
Yep.
It's never going to be done. So, and it was impressive. I listened to the whole thing, and I forgot about some of the stuff I didn't know, but it is very impressive. It's an incredible case and really a great job done.
George set the bar high, right? Like George and Kevin set the bar high. When I came into the squad, you used to look over from the Ram, right? You look out the hallway door and you'd see those guys, and they were doing what they were doing on the cold cases. And it was like, that was the ultimate dream. And then as George moved on and I got to, work with Kevin, right? George,
Wait, we're not allowed to talk about this. George, we will not talk about Kevin and George going over to Brooklyn North Homicide. We're not talking about that.
He's still signing me in the 7-9.
To this day, 25 years later, he still signs George in.
Still signing me in the 7-9.
But it's the guys who were attention to detail who told you how to do it and how to do it right? For both the victims and everybody. And that was a high bar to keep and maintain. And then, like I said, when I had the opportunity to work with Jimmy and then the guys from HSI, like we did some really, it was pretty cool stuff there. And then the amount of murders that we did. George, you and Kevin, and then when I worked with Kevin, there were like 400 open ones dating back to like the 40s.
Yeah.
Mike, there was a case, because it was so busy then, when Kevin and I were looking at the old cases, we pulled out a case folder, and the perp was ID'd. They just never, it was a woman. She stabbed somebody right around the corner from the precinct. Nobody ever went to pick her up. So Kevin and I drove out to Long Island, and we picked her up, but it was because those guys didn't have the time. That was early 80s, maybe late 80s. There were just so many murders. You just did what you had to do. You almost had to triage everything. All right, this isn't going nowhere. Put it away. 2 minutes of work between me and Kevin figuring out who did it and where she lived, and we went and picked her up.
So crazy. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to thank everybody. Pete, thanks for your perspectives. You and I, this is the show that we do, but it was really great to have you listen in and weigh in on your RICOs and the federal prosecutions up north. And then as we do future episodes, how all this ties in, the differences, the similarities, really cool. Mike, a good friend who we've been since 1999, really good friends. George, same thing. I met George and Mike in 1999. And so we've been together over 25 years. So thanks for coming on and doing this and sharing the story. Really, really appreciate it. It's not easy. Some people don't like to do it. I think these stories need to be told and need to be memorialized because I don't think people really truly understand that cops, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, if they sign up for it and they sign up and they swear to the oath and they stick to the oath, they truly care about the community and protecting that community, because people deserve to live peaceably more than anything. Jimmy Glynn, FBI agent, special agent Jimmy Glynn, 37 years and change. Bad tech, great investigator.
Sorry about that. But I do want to say thanks for your hospitality on the 7-9. Well, you know what? For 20-something years out there, I had carte blanche. I walked into the squad anytime. I was always met with a friendly face. And all those guys, who we mentioned tonight, they became friends of mine, and I would see them regularly, but you guys gave me a second home out in the 7-9.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. So thank you all for coming on, telling a story. This is a great episode. A lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff. I hope the people appreciate it. I'm going to do some house cleaning. Guys, hang out. If you want to hang on, we do after the show is over in the green room, we just debrief and make sure everything is good. So hang on, but I'm going to do some house cleaning. So everybody, we have retired Inspector Joe Cortiz's retired inspector from the NYPD and the Real-Time Crime Center. So the executive perspective on the Finest Unfiltered channel, we have Ron on episode 48 is going to interview Inspector Joe Cortizis, who will memorialize his career over 2 decades in the NYPD. He went through the ranks and commanded the 106 and the 105 precincts. He was the Detective Bureau Central Investigation Section and the Real-Time Crime Center. He was also the executive officer of the Office of Chief of Department at CompStat Unit. And in his private life, post-career, excuse me, he has founded Joe Core Consulting, and he's the senior vice president of 3SI Security Systems, Global Law Enforcement Division. Excuse me. He's also a member of the Facial Identification Working Group, and so much more. So come see Joe Cortizis and Ron Layson tomorrow night, 5:05 at the Executive Perspective. So with that, I'm going to do the outro because I don't have any water.
You choke it to death. Somebody come in and do the Heimlich.
So I'm going to do it. No Heimlichs. We get rid of George here. Thanks, guys, again. Great show. Really appreciate it. Really cool stuff.
Thank you.
And then hang out, and we'll do the outro. So listen to our blues. Thanks, everybody. Please stay safe, everybody. God bless.